evening, everybody. This is Paul Masters, your Republican candidate for Congress in Pennsylvania's 6th District, and I'm here to talk about the Republicans' latest tax reform bill, why I dislike it very much, why I would not support it, and why it is nothing like what I would support or propose if I'm so lucky as to be your next elected representative. First of all, it's not a tax reform bill. It's a tax minor edit at best. This is the same kind of terrible legislation we've come to expect, and I think become immune to for both Republican and Democratic Congresses. So first of all, it is not middle-class tax reform. Almost every Congress, at least since I've been alive, has proposed or something that they've termed middle-class tax reform, and all it ever does is promise a couple token small things to the middle class while leaving in place all the stuff we wantonly dislike, most voters at least wantonly dislike, about the tax bill, which is its Byzantine complication, its suspiciously even more Byzantine complication for extremely large high-income businesses and wealthy individuals. So it doesn't give much to the middle class while leaving in place all of the stuff that's quite favorable to those who would generally make up what we would term the donor class, i.e. wealthy individuals and corporations that disproportionately fund political campaigns. I would proffer that those two points are probably not unrelated. So let's move on to what my overarching principles for tax reform would look like, so you can get an idea of what I would be doing. First of all, I would want the equal treatment of income. Now, this is not a flat tax. What that means is I think all forms of income should be treated equally regardless of source. The way it works right now is if you make income from a certain number of sources, things like capital gains, qualified dividends, or I think one of the more notorious ones is the carried interest loophole. It's not a loophole, it's a duly passed provision of the tax code functioning as intended, allow people that make their money from certain sources to pay far less in taxes than anybody else. That's why you have a hedge fund manager who makes $300,000 a year would only pay 15% in taxes on that, while a doctor or some other high wage earner or a salary earner making the same amount of money would pay almost double the marginal tax rate. So instead of having provisions like this, I would want all income to be treated equally. So however the money gets into your bank account, it's just taxed at whatever tax bracket you happen to reside at. End of story. You take out the applicable deductions. There you go. Next, increase revenue. I think any tax bill at this point needs to increase the revenue. The budget is a massive problem. We've been deficit spending for most of the post-war period, when, graced by a year or two here and there of a budget surplus. The last time we balanced a budget at the federal level was in the early 2000s, and we've been adding $500 billion to $1 trillion a year to the deficit since then. That is a lot of unpaid bills, and we cannot keep deficit spending at that rate. So I think any new tax code should take that into account and be at least deficit neutral and hopefully deficit positive, i.e. would bring in some more money so we can begin paying down the debt. I would also like to see a lower corporate tax rate. Now, again, we need to couple that with other changes, i.e. there's the corporate tax rate, which is quite high in comparison to other countries, but then there's all these other portions of the tax code. That's the labyrinthine complexity portion of it. There's all these other ways in the tax code that companies reduce their tax liability through various bits and favors, and some of them are, specifically targeted to one company, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to stop doing business like that. So now I would want to see the corporate tax rate lowered, but also on the back end to take care of all these other ways, eliminate lots of these other ways that companies use to reduce tax liability. And lastly, I want a short, simple, easy to understand tax documents, not just for individuals, but not just for middle-class individuals, but for all individuals, wealthy, not wealthy, corporations. I don't see why it needs to be longer than 12 or 15 pages, something that any reasonable person could read and act through. It's obviously going to be a little bit more complicated on the business end, but it doesn't need to be that much more. All right, thank you. I hope this hasn't been a waste of your valuable time listening to me rant about the ever so exciting subject of tax reform. I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, feedback, positive or negative, hopefully positive. But if you do have feedback or want to get in touch or more interested in the campaign, all of my contact information is available at mastersforcongress.com. Check it out, see what I have to say. This isn't the only subject I'll be commenting on. But anyway, thank you for your time and enjoy your evening.